I made 24 video games over the last 8 years, and 4 of them are pretty good, but we're not talking about those today. We're talking about the other 20, the old, scrappy, unfinished demos I made that have never seen the light of day until now. Some of these are cool ideas that just never turned into finished games, and others just genuinely suck. I'll leave it to you to decide which is which. We'll start off with Slot Shot, an FPS where you re-roll your gun. There are 2 parts of the gun that get rolled, your base weapon type and your ammo type, so you end up with weird combinations like a shotgun flamethrower, minigun grenade launcher, electric sniper rifle, that kind of thing. I imagined it having classic arena combat like Doom where you only get 2 or 3 re-rolls per stage. You'd also be able to edit the dice themselves, replacing the slots with other dice you find on your journey as a kind of choose your own luck type thing. Since an entire 3D FPS was too big of a task for me, I decided to make things simpler by turning Slot Shot into a 2D mobile game. The idea was that this would make the project more manageable so that I could actually finish it, but we both know how that turned out. A friend of mine also made some sweet concept art for it, so it really is a shame I never got around to finishing it. Maybe one day. Next up, we've got Project Nucleus, a mix between an RTS and a tower defense. The cool part is that as you build your base, you're determining the route all the units will follow, so the whole time you're placing buildings, you're constructing a nice little death trap for the enemy units. My favorite tower is the nuclear plant. It costs a ton to build, but once you do, it produces a boatload of energy. But if the enemy destroys it or it runs for too long, it'll blow up in a 5x5 grid, destroying anything built near it. I even saw a sneaky player build one inside the enemy's base one time to blow up their defenses and win the game. It was awesome. And then there's Hyperdriver, which is definitely the most finished of my unfinished games. It's a roguelike, because of course it is, where you drive through randomly generated levels, blasting through hazards and collecting coins. It's like a mix between Temple Run and Galaga. Every so often you'll come across a garage, and you have the choice to either stop at the garage for repairs or collect this big pile of coins next to it. If you do go in the garage, you'll be presented with a few random upgrades you can buy with your coins, as well as a cheap general repair to replenish your health. Every garage also has a mandatory speed boost after it, amping up the gameplay. The controls honestly feel pretty good, tilting to move and tapping anywhere on the screen to shoot. It definitely gives you those classic arcade vibes. There's even a final boss with voice acting and everything.
My strength is incalculable.
Yeah, voice acting. Next we've got Ghost Recall, a game where you fight alongside your past selves. You play it like a normal FPS until this timer runs out. Once that happens, the whole game resets, and when it does, that past life you just lived repeats everything you did that round, moving where you moved and shooting where you shot. These ghosts can both kill and be killed, so when you're playing, you're not just shooting where your opponent is now, you're also shooting where they were in the past, and shooting where you think they'll be in the future. Sadly, I never got very far in developing it, but I feel like this would be an awesome party game. Imagine accidentally getting killed by your past self. Hilarious. And then we've got Delve, which is basically a mix between Zelda 1 and Castle Crashers. It's a 4-player co-op dungeon crawler where you explore the world with your friends, fight monsters, and find cool items, but you don't pick a class for your character. Everything unique about your player comes from the items you're carrying, and you can only carry 3 at a time, each corresponding to one of your gamepad's buttons. So if you have a boomerang in your A slot, and you hit the A button on your controller, you throw the boomerang. So for example, you could have a sword in your A slot, a shield in your B slot, and a bow in your C slot, giving you a nice variety of options during combat. Or you could just put a sword in every single slot, allowing you to triple wield them and attack crazy fast. Or you could do 1 dagger with 2 pairs of speed boots, turning you into the madcap. The combinations are endless. But let me ask you something. What if you gave Tony Hawk a machine gun? And that is basically Terminal Velocity, a game where you drift around on a skateboard and shoot bad guys. You can jump by doing a kickflip, and if you land on a cinder block, you grind it as a speed boost. You can also hold shift to start a drift, which sends you blasting forward whenever you decide to end it. And here's where the game gets its name. Your gun's fire rate is determined by your speed, meaning the faster you move, the faster you shoot. I even had a boss fight in the demo, but that's all there is on this one. I imagine that in the full game, grinding would still act as a speed boost, but you could also do tricks to gain other kind of power-ups, like do a 180 to get a heal, or jump a gap for a short damage buff, that kind of thing. But if that's a little too extreme for you, here's Dream Blocks, a falling block puzzle game where you have to maneuver the blocks by drawing slopes on the screen. Blocks come in all shapes and sizes, squares, circles, triangles, you name it man, we've got it all. Blocks of the same color stick to each other and blocks of different colors just act normal. There's no real end goal, you just try and build your tower as tall as possible without letting any blocks fall off the sides. It's meant to be a relaxing mobile game you can play while you wait in line at the doctor's office, or while you drink your morning cup of coffee, or while you watch Markiplier or whatever. Nothing crazy, just a fun little minigame to play, much like the original Tetris. The line drawing element is pretty fun. You could imagine in the full game there would be some blocks that have powers, like sticking to anything, or floating, or being super heavy. There could also be bombs that drop from the sky that you have to carefully maneuver to minimize damage. All in all, I think it's a pretty fun idea, even if it's simple. And sticking with mobile for a minute, here we have Seedling, a ball tilt game where instead of moving your character, you tilt the entire world to roll around. You play as a giant seed, and so you beat the stage by planting yourself in one of these pots. Getting to the pots is where all the challenge comes from, as there are moving floor tiles, cannons that push you around, death pits, Slenderman, you know, just normal video game stuff. There's a good few levels here too, and I'm pretty happy with the cartoonish art style. I experimented with mobile tilt controls so that the level tilts in the same direction you tilt your phone, and it was pretty cool, although not as precise as just tilting it by sliding your finger across the touchscreen. You could easily imagine weird boss fights that utilize the tilt mechanic where they're also affected by the tilt in some way. Maybe a water boss that sloshes around the screen as you tilt it, who knows? And speaking of gyro controls, here's Treasure Flipper. I've been waiting to show you guys this one. This is a game that might literally break your phone. Throughout the game, you collect treasure at the bottom of the ocean by tapping on it, but you have to do it fast, otherwise you'll run out of oxygen. To move to the next stage and replenish your air, you have to literally flip your phone in your hand. And sometimes when you dive back in, you'll see a shark and have to immediately flip again before he bites you. This game was really just born from the fact that I am always fidgeting with my phone and always almost breaking it. It's fun to flip a phone around in your hands, and that's basically the extent of it. Also, it's a roguelike. Moving back to PC here, we have Dice of Mine, a game where die rolls determine what moves you have. Roll a 5 of boots, and you can move 5 tiles. Roll a 3 of swords, and you have 3 attacks. Roll a 1 of shields, and you have 1 temporary armor. There are 3 dice, and they re-roll themselves every 15 seconds, giving you new moves each time. Each die is identical, which is kind of an issue actually, because sometimes you can just roll all shields and then not be able to move or attack at all for 15 seconds. It's a jam game I made with some buddies with like 10 or so levels, and it's not too tough. I think it'd be cool if you could buy different dice throughout the game to switch things up, like a die that's all 1s and 2s of boots, giving you consistent movement, or a die that only has one face with some crazy weapon you get to use whenever you're lucky enough to roll it. All in all, I'm pretty happy with the game conceptually, and I really like the art my friend did for it, but the gameplay itself just doesn't really work all that great. Unlike Tree Enforced, a 2D platformer base builder where you're a cute little squirrel defending a cute little tree. This is another one I worked on with a few friends, which explains why some of the art is actually pretty good and not grotesque like my usual style. The game is centered around planting plants to grow your base. Throw one on the ground or on a tree, and then water it to watch it grow. There are saplings which grow tree trunks that you can climb and jump around on, which form the bulk of your base. Then there are corn stalks you can plant to grow little corn guns that shoot kernels. There are eggplants and thorns that function as defensive traps to ward off the game's enemies, which are all weird little mutated animals. There's this woodpecker that has a chainsaw for a beak, and it'll swoop down and destroy your base if you're not careful. And also spiky worms that fall from the sky that crawl around your tree and hurt you if you touch them. And also giant frogs. Because, you know, giant frogs. Overall, I'd say Tree Enforced is a pretty good game, even though there's no way for it to end other than by you losing or it crashing. Then there's Husk, a basketball game where the balls are hearts and the baskets are rib cages, all wrapped inside this 80s synthwave aesthetic. This was basically just me messing around with shaders and nothing more. Just look at all that sweet, sweet bloom. I never made more than 2 levels for the game despite having the entire thing fully programmed, so yeah, I don't know, I think I'm just kind of stupid or something. I mean, what else can I say? The hearts look like Lucky Charms. Although Husk did eventually turn into Synth Run, which is technically a finished game. Technically. It used to be available for download on app stores, but nobody was downloading it on account of the simple fact that the game looks like a cute little casual game, but is actually harder than Dark Souls 2 with all skulls turned on. Basically, it's a runner game where the songs come to life as you play the level in the form of various hazards, which is a sick concept that I totally stole from Everhood. The game had 12 different music tracks for the 12 different levels, and honestly the songs themselves were pretty solid. They were synthy 80s inspired electronic tracks, you know the type. The gameplay was pretty good too, despite being super hard. Literally only one of my friends was able to beat the game. Whoopsie! And here's Boomball, a 2-player local-only mobile game that is basically Pong with guns. There's like 20 different maps, and honestly this one's not too bad either. All you really need to know is that I put random crits in the game. Moving on, we've got Herald's Lightning, a 2D platformer that has nothing to do with lightning. Why is it called that then? I don't know, man. That's just what the file is called on my computer. I could not tell you why I named it that. The gimmick here is that you've got normal platformer controls, except for the added bonus of being able to rotate the entire stage 360 degrees. I love it when stages get rotated around in games, and thought it'd be sweet if you were able to actually control it for once. Up next we have Project Rem. It's another 2D platformer, but this time you can change the gravity of the whole world by pressing shift. It toggles between 3 states: low grav, normal grav, and high grav, indicated by a little HUD icon in the bottom left. There are different puzzles and enemies scattered around the world to make you utilize the different gravities, like this box puzzle. You need to get the crate down here so you can jump on it to cross through these thorns, but if you just push it normally, it slides off the whole map. Obviously, high gravity would make it fall faster, but if you set it to high gravity, you can't jump high enough to touch it. So you have to switch to low gravity to jump, then switch back to high gravity after you push the crate. I feel like that's pretty cool. It is also the only real puzzle in this entire game. My friend Jarhinge did some incredible concept art based on the initial prototype, and to this day, it's some of my favorite art ever. It's definitely the best thing about this old hunk of junk. But obviously, this demo has a big problem. No rats. So I fixed that with the second iteration, where the entire game is based around playing as a lab rat that was being experimented on by a mad scientist trying to test his anti-gravity device. There's a reason most of my games don't have stories. Jar was nice enough to make some more concept art for this one too. And I will say the level design is much better here, and having this tail whip power is pretty sweet. There's this ratskit ball section that's fun to mess around with and makes for some neat puzzles. And check out these cannons that shoot glass bottles. Depending on the gravity, they'll form different shooting patterns. Then when you crank it down to low gravity, they go off trajectory and break, allowing you to pass through. That's pretty neat. And here's Putt Putt Paradise, a mini golf game with cutesy hazards like little gophers that pop up out of the ground and cute little lawn gnomes that march around. I experimented with doing randomly generated maps because I wanted to turn the whole thing into a roguelike, and I think if I do ever actually do a roguelike, it probably will be something super casual like this. And now I want to go back to 2014 and show you my very first video game. It's called Unfair Memorization, and I think it might technically be the worst video game ever made, but who's counting? It's a 2D platformer where every hazard in the game is invisible, so you have to memorize where they are to get through the stage. If that sounds awful, yeah. I didn't even do it right though, because you can see the invisible hazards stand out from the other objects if you look closely enough. It's meant to be one of those rage games that were popular at the time. Your character doesn't even stop moving when you die, he just dematerializes while you control him. There's really nothing else to say about this one other than this. If you're an aspiring game dev or creative of any kind, don't be discouraged if your first project is terrible, because trust me, it probably will be. Mine obviously was. But making those little demos is what taught me the skills I needed to eventually build my 4 Steam games. They're all weird and wacky, and I am so proud of each of them, and even more proud of the people I worked with to build them. But I never would have made those if I never made this terrible, unfinished, beautiful mess of a rage platformer. So do me a favor, record that cringy song you've been writing, make that weird short film that nobody will watch, and start programming that terrible game that everybody will hate, because sucking at something is the first step towards being sorta good at something. If those last 4 games I showed you looked cool, you can get all of them as a bundle for just $9, which is like $2 per game. One of them is a speedy version of chess where you don't have to wait to take your turn. Another is an enchanted pool game where each color ball has a different magical effect. Another is a 2D platformer with rocket jumps, grapple swings, pogo sticks, and hang gliders, and there's even a fun little arcadey combat game where your keyboard literally is your level. If you can't tell, I really freaking like making video games, so it would mean the world to me if you just try the games out and leave a review if you like them, and if you don't like them, just refund them, you won't hurt my feelings. Alright, that's it from me. So long, Gay Bowser.